One of the central tenets of video games is escapism, the ability to immerse yourself in a world that is not your own and forget about any problems of the day. People play video games to relax, to unwind, to get enthralled with a story, or to get a competitive adrenaline rush. One thing people generally don't do, unless they're a writer for Kotaku, is play video games to reinforce their politics, or demand the gaming industry to get involved and do things in support of those politics. And I guess the Game Awards Future class is filled with future Kotaku writers because they have just called on Jeff Keighley by name and the entire Game Awards team to make sure that they address the situation in Gaza during their Game Awards broadcast this coming December. An awards show for video games, and they want Jeff Keighley in the middle of it to be like, and the award for biggest humanitarian crisis goes to the situation in Gaza. Hundreds of people are being killed on the daily, but don't let that sour the mood, because up next we're announcing Best Esports Coach. It's just so out of place, dude. Nobody is tuning into a Game Awards show to hear about Gaza, and if you are, take a fucking break. You can be political in your own life 24/7. You don't need every broadcast of literally anything to spread awareness of something everybody already knows about. The letter has specifics on what they want them to say about it, too. It's pretty interesting. It's also interesting what the letter doesn't say, so I'm going to read it to you and we're going to talk about the different stuff. Before that, though, the question on everyone's mind, what is the Game Awards Future Class? Who are they, and why should we care? Well, the short answer is we shouldn't. It's an annually handpicked collection of 50 people by the Game Awards team, presumably, who work as developers or publishers in the space, the majority of which are credited as writers, directors, or producers on games nobody's heard of. Some of these games have less than 50 Steam reviews. I guess being a member of the Future Class isn't that prestigious, and it's certainly not a cheat code to have your game do well because nobody in the general public can name a single person in the class. Some of them have worked on big games, but I noticed a pattern that the bigger the game, the smaller the class member's role on it was. Like, they'll be senior designer on a game that's made $30 in total sales, but if it's something big like Spider-Man 2, they're probably just the guy who gets people coffee. These people don't have clout, and a letter from them calling for the Game Awards to do what they say doesn't hold much weight. What are they going to do? Stop making unknown games? Cast off the title of future class member? Stop, I'm literally shaking. So let's get into the letter now, where even if you're not inherently opposed to recognizing global political events at a Game Awards show, we're still going to point out some problems with the letter even to that effect. It starts like this. Dear Emily sorry, no idea how to pronounce that, Jeff Keighley and the whole Game Awards team. We are writing you this letter as members of the Game Awards Future Class, supported by our peers in the industry. That statement means nothing. Continue. In the past years, you've selected us to represent the future of the game industry. Hasn't really worked out that way, but sure. You didn't choose us as symbols of what the game industry currently is. Makes sense since you're barely involved in it. But of what it could be. A diverse, inclusive, and caring workplace. A positive force in the world that can influence billions of people. Whenever people say positive force in regard to shit like this, they just mean furthering their own political agenda. It's never like, oh, we want to be a positive force by, say, organizing an event to clean up litter, or planting trees, or saving animals from kill shelters. It's, we want every game to let you choose your pronouns and play as a black woman. We want to make sure voice actors are the same race as the character they play. Unless it's a white character, then it can be anybody, because remember slavery? The letter continues, we want to sincerely thank you for the trust you extended when nominating us. Trust in what? That you would go on to become the lead writer for bad game after bad game, and that's great as long as you stand with Ukraine on Twitter? The next two lines of the letter basically confirm this. Today we'd like to honor that trust. You gave us the role of ambassadors of a better future. As such, our duty towards you and all the players worldwide compels us to speak up. Then they go straight into the Gaza situation and reveal the true purpose of their group. The Game Awards Future Class has nothing to do with games at all. It's just activism. I should have known as much when at one of the Game Awards shows a couple years ago they did their Future Class segment and brought a black guy on who spent the entire time talking about how he's scared to be black in the instantly iconic quote, I'm black and I'm scared. Honestly, a great title for an indie horror game. Someone should really make that. You go in a haunted house, but it's full of jump scares by off-duty police officers who say you fit a description. Okay, back to the letter, which details some of what's happening in Gaza, but you'll notice a very heavy slant. The genocide that is being acted on the Palestinian people is abhorrent. It isn't a new situation, but the developments that are currently unfolding have reached a new high in their horror. On November 6, 2023, the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres reported, Gaza is becoming a graveyard for children. Hundreds of girls and boys are reportedly being killed or injured every day. More journalists have reportedly been killed over a 4-week period than in any conflict in at least 3 decades. More United Nations aid workers have been killed than in any comparable period in the history of our organization. Then they say, we invite you to please read the full statement on the United Nations website. Okay, let's do some unpacking, but unlike the game unpacking, which one of these members worked on, this will actually be fun. So this letter frames the conflict as only Palestinians being killed, as if pretending Hamas doesn't exist and isn't using Palestinian civilians as human shields to force the body count up while holding dozens of hostages, though they did release some recently. It also doesn't mention Israel at all, even as the perpetrators of Palestinian genocide, which is kind of interesting from their point of view. Like, you're not going to name and shame the people responsible for the death you're talking about? Would that be too divisive for you? If you name Israel, do you bring down more controversy and criticism on yourself than you can handle? Let me be clear that there are war crimes happening on both sides of this conflict, and supporting either side fully is something you can't really do without staining your integrity and your soul a little bit. We're either dismissing the decapitation of babies or the bombing of civilians, human shield or otherwise, and nobody is getting out of this with clean hands. That's why I think it's disingenuous to focus on one group of people as the victims in this conflict when civilian Israelis are also getting their legs broken and their corpses raped out here, you dig? But their government started it. Yeah, my government started a war in Iraq, but I'm pretty sure I, as a civilian, don't deserve to be blown up for it. If you're going to be at war, do it with a country, not its people. This is only the first half of the letter, though, so let's continue. Like many of our peers, we are appalled by the war crimes the Palestinian people are victims of. Yeah, just them, right? And we grieve the loss of so many civilian lives. Adding to that pain is the knowledge that our industry is playing a role in this. Wait till you hear how they think that is. Indeed, the Genocide Watch outlines that a crucial step to enable a genocide is the widespread dehumanization of its victims. Several game developers and journalists, including, and then they just list like 7 names I don't want to read, and many others, have called out how a hugely influential game industry systematically produces works that dehumanize and vilify Muslims, Arabs, and the many brown and black people living in the regions of Southwest Asia and Northern Africa. SWANA. And we're back to the Call of Duty is racist argument, but not just racist, apparently a large stepping stone in support of genocide because of its depictions of the type of people our country typically goes to war against. If we're going to make a game about fighting terrorists, does it not make sense to make the terrorists the same kind of people we already know as terrorists? It's not to say that all Arabs, Muslims, etc. are terrorists, it's just that all the terrorists we know are Arab, Muslim, etc. Call of Duty isn't a game about, let's go over here and kill all the Arabs who think differently than us. It's a game about, let's go over here and kill all the literal terrorists who have committed atrocities and are holding weapons and shooting them in our direction. These are the people who are traditionally the most at odds with the West's ideas of freedom and culture and whatnot. It's not like we just drew names out of a hat on who to label as terrorists and randomly pulled out the fucking Taliban, which, by the way, is a group it is most certainly okay to hate and make games about killing them, just like Nazis, which unsurprisingly none of these letter writers complain about, just like any other murderous organization whose goal is to kill all who oppose them. If you want a little more diversity in the kind of soldiers and insurgents we make games about being at war with, though, might I suggest North Korea for a palate cleanser? They're not brown, at least, and they sure do hate us. Or should the next Call of Duty game be about America versus Finland? I'm kind of down, honestly. I'd love to see where that goes. Also, need I remind you, it's a goddamn video game. Back to the letter, which continues from its point of the supposed dehumanization of brown people in gaming. Yet, when Meghna Jayanth wanted to address that in her speech at the Golden Joystick Awards this year, she was urged to keep silent. With the current state of the game industry, silence is a message. Silence is tacit support. Silence is dehumanization of Palestinian lives. Those last 3 lines are each separated as their own paragraphs in the letter for dramatic effect, very effective, I'm convinced. Let me tell you something. Silence isn't tacit support when it is occurring during something the alternative has no business being a part of. If I go to my nephew's birthday party and I don't actively stand with Ukraine the whole time, am I showing tacit support for Russia, or am I just trying to enjoy something that is and should be completely detached from global politics? The Game Awards hasn't been shy about expressing political messages in the past, like letting these weird digital cartoon band members wear black Trans Lives Matter shirts during a trailer, or condemning Activision Blizzard when all the allegations surfaced. Not that the latter is even really political in the traditional sense, but it's still a case of taking time out of a show to address something happening in the world, which makes me speculate on the reason this letter even needed to be published, because it implies that the Game Awards wasn't going to talk about the conflict at all otherwise. Good for them if true, but now it's on them to stay the course and not get bullied by weirdos they nominated for being weirdos. Back to the letter, and the part where they outline their actual demands. As members of the Game Awards future class and members of the industry, you're using that term awful loosely, that's like if a bunch of open micers called on Dave Chappelle to address something in his next special, we are urging the Game Awards to break that silence. I fucking hate that term. The media and tabloids and journalism in general has made me hate that term. It's always, this celebrity finally breaks silence on what she thinks of her co-star. It's not like she spent all that time actively not talking about it. Like she signed an NDA or some shit. It's just something she never said before. According to that, I'm about to break a 29-year silence on my opinion of grapes. I only like the seedless ones, but both green and red are fine. Mic drop. We're not breaking a silence. We're just talking about other shit. We're busy or we don't care. We are asking for a statement to be read out in our name during the Game Awards ceremony on December 7th, which calls for 1. The games industry to invest resources and work against its systematic dehumanization of people from Southwest Asia and North Africa. 2. To express support for the protection of Palestinian human rights. 3. Call for a long-term ceasefire before any more civilian lives are unjustly taken. Holy shit, dude, where to start? I like the part where they say they want a statement to be read out in their name. You doing a little clout chasing with your activism? The two do often go hand in hand. Not like it'll work. The Game Awards dedicates a segment to the future class every awards show, and it doesn't add a sentence to their individual Wikipedia pages. To their first bullet point, investing resources literally just means hiring more diversity boards to oversee game development and make sure nobody's accidentally making their games fun. If you saw the paychecks of some of the people on these boards, you would shit yourself and probably apply for a position. There is so much money to be made in policing everyone's thoughts and actions. It's unreal. The second bullet point is standard fare. Just say, hey, we don't like when civilians die. But of course, if you don't specifically mention Palestinian ones while leaving out Israeli ones, it won't be good enough. I love the audacity of number 3, just the sheer doe-eyed naivete associated with it. Call for a long-term ceasefire. Jeff's like, okay, I hope they listen. Dude, if the Game Awards can't even bring peace to the Middle East, then I don't know who can. This letter really made its way to the right people. It's unfortunately not over yet, though. When you trusted us to be champions of a better future, you gave us the duty to tell you when and how you could do better. Barf. Now that we did, easy there, your narcissism is showing, we dearly hope that you can commit to that better future. Thank you so much for reading us. Jesus Christ, man, what a mindless circle jerk of imagined authority. If Jeff Keighley or whoever actually reads the statement these people want him to, the entire crowd should boo. I think that's the only way to really get the message across that people are not looking for this in their fucking video game awards show. I'll be streaming it on December 7th when it goes live, and I really hope I don't have to react to some bullshit like that. But that's going to do it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, you can like, share, and subscribe. Follow me on Twitter at Sunburned Albino. Watch all my other videos and tell me to do better, and I'll see you guys next time.